Welcome back to Home But Not Alone. Today, okay, so we're going to continue exploring what the Catechism says about the family. A couple of episodes ago, back in episode 42, we chatted about the family and God's plan, and today we're going to look into the family and society. So both of these topics are found in the Catechism in the section about the fourth commandment. So they're super important topics to help us learn how we're called to live out God's plan for our lives. You know, the commandments help us live out God's plan for our lives and our fulfillment, and especially for our vocation as spouses and parents. So, hey, Tim.
Hey, Sarah. Okay, a few days ago, so I've been trying to, I gotta tell you this, my bike, I got a bike. It's not my bike,
Okay.
it's my sister's bike. But I'm like, I need to get back in shape because, I'm not, and I want to get a little bit healthier. And so I didn't have a bike, but my sister did. So I figured out how to change the tube on the inside of a bike tire. And it's not easy. I get why people pay people to do that, and
Right.
it would really have been worth it. But so there's this park near us, and I took the bike out recently, and it was early in the morning, and I got up and I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna go. Oh, it's a little chilly. Great. All right, I'm gonna go out. Not because it was chilly, but I was happy that no one else was gonna be out there because it
Okay.
was chilly.
Because it was
And
chilly. All right.
so I'm heading toward this park down this path, and I see just like this like mist of the morning, and it's just like, oh, it looks like a poem, and there's nobody there. And then I got into the park, and I was a little disappointed because there were a few people there. And then I got farther along, and I had gone from this like, oh my gosh, look at that. That looks beautiful too. Oh my gosh, I'm gonna die. This is so hard. Getting
Oh,
back in shape is not easy. I'm gonna fall off this bike. It's not gonna last.
oh
How am
no.
I gonna get all the way home? And I'm thinking about that, and I was like, that is, someone tell me it isn't, but I think that that's a good analogy for how a lot of times we see parenting, because we see
Okay.
like the ideal of what parenting is from a
Right.
distance, and
And it
then we
looks
get to
good.
it. Yeah, and then we get there, and other people are poking their noses into our business, getting in the way of our path, and then we're like, I'm gonna die. How am I gonna get through this? And somehow I made it back, and I want to say
Were you
stronger as a
alive?
result. I was alive, and I think I was healthier as a result. So
I bet.
anyway, I'm not sure if the whole analogy works, but that happened to me the other day, and
That's
I don't
awesome.
know. I thought it was
Biking is good.
relevant.
I used to do some mountain biking with my husband, and I'll never forget this one time. He would always take the lead, right? Because I would get us lost in the woods. So he takes the lead and he's biking and he's going really hard up the hill, and all of a sudden he stops. I'm like, why did you stop in the middle of the hill? Like, I can't stop in the middle. So I go flying by him, and he's like, hey, stop. And so I stopped, and there was this giant spider web right across the path with this big spider right here that would have hit me smack in the face if I had just like zoomed past him. So after that, I learned to trust him more.
Well, that's I love that. I love, because yeah, I was thinking, who stops in the middle of a hill? You got to keep going, or
Yeah,
you're not going to be able to get back and go more.
seriously.
Anyway, okay, so
Okay, so let's
let's
talk
get
about
back
the
into the
family and
catechism.
society. Go ahead.
Yeah. No, I was just going to say we're in the catechism. We're talking about the section on the family and society. Can you read for us our next paragraph that we are on?
Can do. We're in paragraph 2207 in the Catechism. The family is the original cell of social life. It is the natural society in which husband and wife are called to give themselves in love and in the gift of life. Authority, stability, and a life of in the family constitute the foundations of freedom, security, and fraternity within society. The family is the community in which, from childhood, one can learn moral values, begin to honor God, and make good use of freedom. Family life is an initiation into life and society. So, Tim, gut reaction.
Well, I love the fact that it says, the family is the original cell of social life. We touched on this a little bit the last time we talked about the catechism, that the family precedes the society. The family precedes all other social institutions. And I like that. And the fact that it's not just the original cell or the predecessor to the institutions of our society, but also social life, of also our moral foundations. We get those originally from our family, that we learn what we need to know we get that, we develop that from our family and all aspects of that, or at least that's what it seems to say. Many aspects of that, it's certainly addressed here specifically: authority, stability, relationships, and freedom, security, fraternity, all of these things that are a part of society as a whole, we first experience in the family and in many ways emerge from the family. What do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. So what's hitting me here is how the families where we learn these things. So it can be really hard when our children have things that we don't like sibling rivalry, or just the other conflicts that come up within a family. But I think that it's important, and I'm learning this in my own parenting, not to get disheartened when those things pop up in our family, because that's part of being a kid and learning how to behave in society. So these are learning opportunities for the kids. Rivalry, or when there's rules they don't like, their whole process of childhood is learning how to function in this society, with these conflicts, with these rules. And so that's really, I don't know, inspiring for me as a parent when I can remember that, not to get disheartened about certain behaviors in my kids.
Oh my goodness. I've been thinking for years about how we need more big leaders in our society who are former kindergarten teachers,
Yeah,
because
right.
so many of the things that we develop as children, that we learn as children, I think often we then get to be adults and we turn around and say, well, that doesn't apply to me anymore. I'm not a child.
Like
And it's
sharing.
like sharing. That's a great example. But in so many ways, it's like we need to remember that the foundation, these are foundational things. So we build upon them as we grow. So just because I'm an adult, yes, I may say live out the sixth commandment in a different way than I used to, but that doesn't mean that I don't still live it. These foundational understandings of respect, of dignity, of sharing, of whatever thing that we
Using your nice
learn.
words.
Using your nice words.
I
These
could
are
do this all
things.
day.
Oh my gosh.
Well, who
Twitter.
says the quote, as
Uh,
as goes the family, so goes the world? Look it
you're
up.
asking
I don't
me
know.
who said that?
Yeah, now I'm quizzing you. I don't
I
know
don't
who
know.
said it, but isn't that a quote? Anyways,
I
I
just
thought of that when this paragraph
I
came up.
assume it's either Mother Teresa or John Paul II. Did anybody
I was
else ever
hoping.
say anything? I just
I thought it was one of those too, but I was hoping you would tell me which, not give
I
me the same two options. I'm going to read the next paragraph.
okay.
2208. The family should live in such a way that its members learn to care and take responsibility for the young, the old, the sick, the handicapped, and the poor. There are many families who are at times incapable of providing this help. It devolves then on other persons, other families, and in a subsidiary way, society to provide for their needs. Quote, religion that is pure and undefiled before God and the Father is this: to visit orphans and widows in their affliction, and to keep oneself unstained from the world. And then there's a footnote telling you where that quote is from. You can go look it up yourself if you want. Tim, what are your
Okay.
thoughts?
Before I give you my thoughts on that, that was
Okay.
John Paul II. That
John Paul
was
II.
yes,
Thumbs up.
that was this guy right back here. If you can see that, which you probably can't. Yes. Okay. So the family should in such a way that should live in such a way that its members learn to care, etc. What I really like about that is I think that puts a lot of, I know there's already a lot of responsibility on us as parents,
Yep.
but I think as parents who struggle, who are fallen, who sin, who make mistakes, I will put myself at the top of all of those lists. But as parents who do that, we need to consistently look in the mirror and kind of reflect at, okay, how am I living? What am I doing? What am I saying? And how are my kids then receiving what I am saying, what I am doing? How are they perceiving what I am doing and saying? And is that something that will then help them learn to do these things? So
Right.
it's when it's the family should live in a way, I think so often I think we fall into this authoritarian type mentality about parenthood, on even if we don't mean to. I think a lot of people tend to, where it's I'm the parent, I'm in charge, and I'm teaching the child, which yes, that is a thing. But at the same time, if the whole family is not living in a certain way, then it's a lot more difficult for the children to develop that way. So I think that is one of the reasons why such a great burden of responsibility falls to the parents. What about you, Sarah?
Right. Yeah. Things like modeling, as a parent, modeling service to your children, especially when they're sick, when they can't take care of themselves. And one of the things that this paragraph made me think about is we have a neighbor who lives across the street. She's 82. She has no kids. She has no grandkids. Her husband passed on. She lives there alone. So, my kids and I have kind of become her family, and been there to help her, in her old age. And to me, it's really opened my eyes to, as a family, taking these opportunities that God puts in our lives, even if it's not like our first inclination to be like, go help the old people down the street, just to take those opportunities, because that is what Christ calls us to do, like to be his presence in the world to those right here in our community who need us. And I think it's been an important lesson for me to learn, and for my children to learn, like to see me doing this with joy, and for them to enter into it, and to help out. So I think that it's important that we live that together as a family.
Great. Love it. Love it. Love it. All right. What's next?
2209. The family must be helped and defended by appropriate social measures. Where families cannot fulfill their responsibilities, other social bodies have the duty of helping them and of supporting the institution of the family. Following the principle of subsidiarity, larger communities should take care not to usurp the family's prerogatives or interfere in its life.
Okay.
Mic drop, Catechism. Yes.
Yeah. So this is where people start to get uncomfortable, because this ends up being a wedge into conversations about certain issues of social justice and how we're supposed to go about those and different things. And that might make people uncomfortable, and that's okay. I've been talking about chastity for many years. I'm used to making people feel uncomfortable. You should hear the number of teenagers who've tried to make me feel uncomfortable. It never works. I feel so bad for them. But it's important that we recognize that, there are, and the Catechism says here, the family must be helped and defended by appropriate social measures. That is where some healthy debate and discussion can and needs to happen in order.
What are those measures?
What are those measures? What is appropriate? What are appropriate social measures? And there can be differences of opinion that are correct, that both fall under Catholic teaching.
Can't, if they're different, they can't, but you can debate them. You can debate, like, prudence, what's the best way to go about it. Like, it's okay for you to disagree on those, because the church hasn't said this is the best way.
Yes. Okay. So, but that's what I was getting at. Thank you. Yeah. And so I think that it's important for us to be open to what other Catholics say within what the church has taught as possibilities, and for us to recognize that, again, this comes back to the institution of the family. How are we supporting the institution of the family? And if we as families can do what Sara was just talking about, where we make sure we take care of other families, if we in this most, whatever, I'm trying to see what
it talks about subsidiarity here.
Yes, that's exactly where I was trying to get back to, is that if we can make sure that we take care of each other, if we take care of the other families, then we won't need other people to come in and take care of them for us. But sometimes there is that need, and we need to, again, make sure that families get to be properly supported in whatever way we can do that. And I think there are a lot of great parish programs that help people, and we need, when we can, to support and participate in those sorts of things. Sara, what do you think?
Yeah, so I like that idea of that the society should be supporting the family. So going back to the example here of our neighbor, like if she had family to support her, then that's what the family needs to do, that, be there. And that speaks to all of us, be there for your parents, be there for your grandparents, be there for the aging people, and the people in need in your family and in your community. But when the family can't, like my neighbor who doesn't have any kids or grandkids, like she was in the nursing home over the winter last year for a little while. And sometimes, things like that need to step in and help out. But I think we need to be careful that it's done for the purpose of supporting the family and not for the purpose of usurping the family's role in caring for each other.
Yeah. And I think there really is something important to be said here because, again, I think a lot of something like this gets lost in social and political discourse about grander ideas about how we should go about different things. But if we could, I don't know, I really think that we
Like
miss the
debate the
point.
ideas, but at the
Yeah.
same time, go home and take care of your family.
Yeah.
You
We
know,
get
so like it's
lost.
okay to do both of those things, I think.
Yeah, we get lost in the ideas, maybe striving for the ideal as opposed to going out and doing what needs to be done. So,
Yeah.
all right. What's next?
Okay. Paragraph 2210. Oh, I like this one. The importance of the family for the life and well-being of society entails the particular responsibility for society to support and strengthen marriage and the family. Civil authority should consider it a grave duty to acknowledge the true nature of marriage and the family, to protect and foster them, to safeguard public morality, and to promote domestic prosperity.
Okay. So the first thing I'm going to say on that is I think that most of us who are watching or listening to this, we are from like the United States or at least from North America. And I think a lot of times we get caught up in our little North American bubble and we think very narrowly as to what this is talking about. But it actually is talking about so much. And you have to remember that a lot of these ideas, they not just reflect what we're dealing with in North America, but think about all the people around the world who are dealing with issues of, you know, forcing people to have a certain number of children and no more. People who are under political ideologies that reduce the person to, what they can produce in terms of
The fly got me. The fly got me.
the
Right.
fly
Sorry,
got
go
you.
ahead.
No, that's why I started laughing. They reduce a person to a means to produce and nothing more. And so there are a lot of different ways that this gets violated. But when it does get violated, suddenly instead of seeing human beings as cells of families, seeing human beings as, okay, these are small institutions. These are institutions, we're the global family, we're, children of Christ, whatever you want to say about these different aspects of family, it gets lost because then the individual is a means to an end. And I think that that's something that historically and even presently is an enormous problem around the world. Sarah, what do you think?
Absolutely. And I think that especially when we do stop focusing, on our own little selves here and we just look out globally, we can see objectively in other areas how destroying the family, really affects society as a whole. And I think it's good to look at that. And then again, just to turn back around and focus on strengthening our own family and living in our own family unit as God calls us to. Because if we want to make an impact on the world, then, John Paul II, as goes the family, so goes the world. So start in our family if we want to make, that change. All right, 2211 is a long paragraph. It has some bullet points, though, so I'm going to go ahead and read this one. The political community has a duty to honor the family, to assist it, and to ensure, especially, the freedom to establish a family, have children, and bring them up in keeping with the family's own moral and religious convictions. The protection of the stability of the marriage bond and the institution of the family. The freedom to profess one's faith, to hand it on, and raise one's children in it with the necessary means and institutions. The right to private property, to free enterprise, to obtain work and housing, and the right to emigrate. In keeping with the country's institutions, the right to medical care, assistance for the aged, and family benefits. The protection of security and health, especially with respect to dangers like drugs, pornography, alcoholism, etc. The freedom to form associations with other families, and so to have representation before civil authority. Go ahead, Tim. This one's very political.
You are not a slave to the state. and the state cannot make you a slave to them, not from a moral standpoint. And that every time we read these, I know a lot of people are probably listening to you read them and think, oh, the United States and politics and such. Almost every time I read one of these things, I immediately think communist Russia. I immediately go back to where, John Paul II grew up and all the difficulties he was raised in. Where you're talking about some of the issues over the last few hundred years in China. You talk about some of the issues that are happening in South America. Just globally, there are, and again, these things apply to all of us. I'm not just trying to export these ideas, and say they only relate to those who are outward or elsewhere.
Yeah.
But that's what keeps coming to my mind, is that the reason why, other than the moral certitude that we have, but the reasons why we know that these are things that must be defended is because we have seen nations, countries where they have not been defended and where they have been removed. And when these things go away, the dignity of the human being is stripped with them. Now, that's not to say things like, where is it says the something about enterprise, free enterprise, somewhere in there. I thought it said, I don't remember. It says something about something. Yeah, free enterprise, right to private property and free enterprise. But just having private property doesn't give you dignity, but your right to pursue certain things, once you start to strip away those rights, then you start to reduce the human being in the eyes of the state. And so that's why it's so important to preserve these. Sarah, what do you think?
Yeah, I really like that summary. Thank you. I struggle a lot of times with these very political things because I'm not very good at understanding politics. So what I take away from these bullet points is to be grateful. When I check off, we have this, we don't have that, to be grateful for the ones that we have. And then to pray for people around the world who do not have these freedoms that are their right, as their family. They have these God instituted the family. God instituted it, and he wants them to have this, and some people it's been taken away. So to pray for them, to be grateful for what we have, and then also, to pray and work for these freedoms to be given in our own country or around the world to the best of our ability.
Love it. All right, next one.
All right, 22:12. The fourth commandment. Oh, yeah. So just keep in mind that this is in the section on the fourth commandment. So we're bringing it all back to that fourth commandment. Honor your mother and your father. Okay. So the fourth commandment illuminates other relationships in society. In our brothers and sisters, we see the children of our parents. In our cousins, the descendants of our ancestors. In our fellow citizens, the children of our country. In the baptized, the children of our mother, the church. In every human person, a son or daughter of the one who wants to be called our Father. Wow, okay. In this way, our relationships with our neighbors are recognized as personal in character. The neighbor is not a unit in the human collective. He is someone who, by his known origins, deserves particular attention and respect.
Okay, see, this is what I was trying to say earlier, except I struggled to say it, which is why sometimes to explain the catechism, you just cite another part of the catechism.
Just keep reading the catechism.
Just keep going through. You get there eventually. But yeah, what I think is so important to take away from that is that last part there. The neighbor is not a unit in the human collective. He is someone who by his known origins deserves particular attention and respect. And I think we have this tendency to, I know a lot of people have a tendency to group and lump and label as categories, and you are a part of this group, and therefore you are these characteristics, you have these, and I don't like that, and whatever, all of these different things. But I'll tell you, I was recently driving somewhere and I was at a stoplight and cars are going past in front of me. And for no reason whatsoever, I just started reflecting on something. And as every person drove past, I thought, Jesus died for that person. Jesus died for that person. Jesus died for that person. And as I thought that, in my head, I was also thinking they are made in the image and likeness of God. And I was like, it wasn't until a few just went by that in me having that thought, that I realized, I don't know if any of these are believing, Christians. I don't know if any of these people are, they might all be hostile to the faith for all I know. But at the same time, they might be saints in the making. I don't know who they are. I don't know what their background is. I don't know anything about them. but I know that. And so I think that that has to be our starting point in any discussion regarding humanity. What do you think?
So I have a friend, Sean Forrest. He started this ministry in Haiti. It's called Haiti 180. And he brings missionaries down there for a week or two at a time, just to help out with the needs of the mission. And one thing that he says is, and this like to call people out, like, okay, so you want to come to Haiti, like you want to fly across the world here and help out, a group of the people in need, And he goes, but would you drive across town to go visit your grandma? Okay, so you want to come help these elderly in Haiti or these young people in Haiti, but will you drive across town to visit your grandma? Like,
I
have
would.
you?
My grandma's awesome.
I
Sorry,
would.
go ahead.
No, but and like another one he brings up is like, okay, a homeless person on the side of the road with a sign. Would you stop and learn his name? Like, would you shake his hand? Would you look him in the eye? Like, would you treat him not as, quote, the poor, not as like, this is my charitable duty, but as an actual person with dignity made in the image and likeness of God? And like, I really take this to heart and I think about it a lot. And I did one time stop and learn this one homeless person's name. Like he was out there every Saturday and I just felt this call in my heart. And I know this can be dangerous. Like, so don't do it if you feel any kind of like, mom intuition that this is not safe for you to be stopping your car and getting out and talking to. But I did. I stopped. I got out of the car. I shook his hand. I learned his name. I learned that he was a Catholic, that he prays the rosary every day. Like I started praying for him. He started praying for me, and I started seeing him every Saturday and really just grew close to this guy. And then we moved away and now we live in New York, but he's still like on my heart. He's not just one poor person out of a bunch of poor people. He wasn't just another charity case. Like he was an individual to me, and he is an individual to me, and I still pray for him. And I think that this paragraph really calls us to that. Like it's not just, charitable giving. It's you need to know that your neighbor is an actual human being made in the image and likeness of God and treat them that way. And that can be scary, like, and difficult, but I think we need to challenge ourselves to step out of our comfort zone and do that.
All right. Last one. What do we have here?
2213, human communities are made up of persons. Governing them well is not limited to guaranteeing rights and fulfilling duties such as honoring contracts. Right relations between employers and employees, between those who govern and citizens, presuppose a natural goodwill in keeping with the dignity of human persons concerned for justice and fraternity.
This is something that comes up all the time, but it comes up especially in politics and social justice situations and whatever, where we sit there and, again, I just mentioned it, where we lump people together, where we sit there and politicians will say either behind the curtain or sometimes out publicly, well, I'm going to get the X vote. And I'm like, the X vote, meaning that group of people who are made up of human beings that have,
Right.
different things they care about. 2020, it's been nice. People are actually fighting over the Catholic vote. And I'm like, yeah, there's a lot of diversity within Catholicism. Like you could,
Oh, yeah.
stop lumping us together too. And so, yeah, just that idea. And it's not just limited to governments. It's like they said here, employers and employees, but any sort of relationship between those who are in charge and those who are being, leaders and those being led, those who are bosses and those who are subordinates, whatever it may be, the first and foremost thing must be, it is the dignity of the person and the people. And we as Catholics need to see things through that lens before we take any further step. And that's across the board of anything related to authority. So, Sarah, what do you got? What do you think?
Yeah, and I think this one brings me back to like that past story. Like the poor are not just lump the poor; they are persons. These titles and these kind of boxes that we put around these. It's made up of persons. And I'm just thinking back to like, what is this section about? It's about families and society. So these persons are not just other, these persons are our brothers and sisters in Christ. And these persons, like, they are our family. And so we need to, when we see the other, know that this person is my brother and recognize that and treat them that way. This person is my sister. This person is my family. God is all of our fathers, and we can't keep, drawing these lines and dividing society. That hurts us. Just like drawing lines and having division, within your family, the cell of your family hurts your entire family. And I think, after getting to the end of this whole section, that's really what I'm taking away from this, is that, the family and society, we have to look at each other as brothers and sisters, as children of God.
Yeah, love it. Love it. Absolutely. We want to hear from you guys. What do you think? Pull open your catechism. If you don't have one, search for this, because you can find it online for free.
I'll put the link in the show notes.
There you go. And let us know what jumps out at you. What maybe is something that you learned that you didn't know before. I think this is a really great opportunity for all of us to go through and maybe discover something or see something in, through the lens of church teaching that maybe we haven't seen before. So we want to thank all of you for listening and watching and everything. If you could subscribe, give us likes, all that stuff. Sarah, where can people find you?
ToJesusSincerely.com and on social media at ToJesusSincerely.
And you can find me at chasedlove.org or on Facebook and Instagram at The Chaste Love. Now, when I was in high school, they offered 3 foreign languages: French, German, and Spanish. But if you can teach your kids a more useful language, do so. Because I know one, toddler. Because those tiny little people, they clearly understand my language. I definitely don't understand theirs.
Nope.
And remember, you're never alone.